Treasurer of MASA, Architect Chakor Mehta, Vice Chairperson of MASA. Technical support for this webinar is being given by Architect Falguni from HCP office and Dr. Priya Chaudhary from Srimati Manoramavai Mundle College of Architecture, Nagpur. Government of India's ambitious redevelopment project of Central Vista, New Delhi, was announced in last September, being given by Architect Falguni from HCP office. The project has been assigned to Gujarat-based HCP Design, Planning and Management firm headed by Architect Patel. Many controversies shroud this project, yet there are many who are in awe of this project and have pride for the design and the legacy associated with it. MASA is an organization which was established in 2004 for the betterment of architecture education in Maharashtra. About 50 self-financing schools of architecture of Maharashtra are its member institutions. MASA has its head office in Pune. Being purely academic body, MASA is more concerned about architectural connotations and ripples the project of this magnitude and stature would create in the world of architects and also amid those who are not architects. Without going into any kind of debate, this webinar would focus on architectonic aspects of projects so that it is more of learning moment for fellow architects and young students of architecture who are attending this webinar today evening. I once again welcome you all and hand over the platform to Dr. Purva to introduce our guest today. Thanks. And Purva, you can take it up.
Thank you, Ujjwala. Of course, it gives me great pleasure and honor to introduce to you the man behind most noteworthy urban planning projects in the country. One of the only few architects who have been honored by one of the highest civilian awards in the Republic of India, the prestigious Padma Shri Award, Dr. Bimal Patel. Architect Bimal Patel got his diploma in architecture from CEPT in 1984 and further masters in city planning and PhD in city and regional planning in 1995 from University of California, Berkeley. He has been working tirelessly for the past 30 years, finding ways in which urban design and urban planning can enrich the lives of people living in Indian cities. Few of his significant and award-winning projects include the Aga Khan Academy at Hyderabad, Ahmedabad Management Association, Bhuj Development Plan and Town Planning Schemes, CG Road Redevelopment, Entrepreneurship Development Institute, Gujarat High Court, Himmatnagar Canal Front Development, IIM Ahmedabad New Campus, Award for Architecture in 1992, World Architecture Award in 1997, UN Center for Human Settlements Award of Excellence 1998, Architecture Review High Commendation Award in 2001, Prime Minister's National Award for Excellence in Urban Planning and Design in 2003, and the HUDCO Design Award in 2013. Today, Dr. Bimal Patel is going to take us through the most talked about urban planning and design project, the revamp of New Delhi's Central Vista, or what we call as Rajpath, the seat of power in the national capital, Delhi. Over to Dr. Bimal Patel.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here and honored to be invited. I think maybe it's best that I start sharing my screen and start with the presentation straight away about the project. It's a long presentation because it's many complicated issues have to be talked about. I hope you like it. Let me just get on with it. Is that okay?
Fine.
Let me just start sharing screen and let's. Okay. Do let me know if I'm not audible. any one of the organizers, if you want to let me know. If I'm not audible, let me know. Let
Sure,
me
sure.
start with the presentation. It's the Central Vista project, reimagining and renewing a national icon. Give me a second as I figure out what's, okay, there we are. First, let me start with how the Central Vista was imagined. See, when designing the Central Vista, Lutyens and Baker, the two architects, were inspired by Washington's Capitol complex and Paris's Champs-Élysées. Facilities needed for efficient functioning of government and be an architectural icon for the government of India. This, of course, was the government of India was the British Raj. Here are three images. The first one is of the National Mall in Washington, designed first in 1791. The next is Champs-Élysées in Paris, with Arc de Triomphe at one end and the Louvre at the other, 1862. And you have here, right down below, the Central Vista. On one side is the Rashtrapati Bhavan, on the other side is India Gate. All of these are at the same scale, and you can see that they have a lot of similarities. Here are the architects for the project on an elephant doing a site visit. I'm glad that we have easier ways of doing site visits today. And on the right-hand side is an image of the hills in this area where the Central Vista is, hills being flattened out to create this magnificent site that we have today near next to Raisina Hill. The architectural device that the architects used was a standard Beaux-Arts device, set up an axis, and you can see this axis here, a processional route in the middle. There are gardens on the two sides. These are the flanks. There's a focal point at one end and a termination point for the axis at the other. It's a pretty standard device of that time. Here you can see the same with the axis in the middle. You can see on the two sides the gardens that are flanking it. And here you have what was at that time called Government House. Today we call it Rashtrapati Bhavan as the focal point of this axis. And at the other end of the axis was the termination point, the India Gate, the War Memorial. Here's a map from the early 1930s of what was built before India became independent. Here we are going to look at this map number of times. So let me just point out what is where. Here you can see at one end a Rashtrapati Bhavan. Then you have the North Block and South Block. These are the secretariats. On this side, you have what was called the Council House. By the way, this was not called Rashtrapati Bhavan. This was called Government House, North Block, South Block. This is the Council House. This was Rajpath in the middle, gardens on two sides, and here you have the War Memorial, now called the India Gate. This is a picture of the Central Vista in 1930s. As you can see here, a barren site on this side. This is Raisina Hill here. Here you have Government House one side. You have the great buildings of the North Block and the South Block. That's Council House out here. And this is Rajpath going down both sides, or at that time called Kingsway. And on two sides are the gardens of the Central Vista. Here's a model of the same in the early 1930s. You can see here, once again, Government House, North Block, South Block, Council House, India Gate or War Memorial. When it was built, the Central Vista was a spectacular architectural achievement. And although it was built to house a colonial government, when India became independent, it was unhesitatingly appropriated by independent India's government and its people as the seat of power in India. Here you have some pictures of Lord Mountbatten leaving for the last time from Government House. On the right-hand side, you have the two flags coming up, the Indian flag coming up after independence. This is 15th of August, 1947. Here, soon on that day, the crowds of Indians took over, so to say, this architectural icon and appropriated it for the new government of India. Government House at one end of the axis became Rashtrapati Bhavan. The statue of King George of the axis. The Council House became Parliament House, as you can see here, the round building. And the King's Way in the middle was renamed to be Rajpath, and Queen's Way became Janpath. North and South blocks started housing the most important ministries of the government of India. And that is how Central Vista became an icon for the government of India, the independent India's government. Now, second, the post-independence management of the Central Vista. Though this was a terrific architectural achievement, after independence, the incomplete parts of the Central Vista were developed haphazardly, without a comprehensive vision and without an inspiring architectural vision of what this place can be. Here you can see early images of the Central Vista. This, of course, is right in the beginning. You can see already some on the side here, some barracks coming up. And here are some pictures in the Second World War, where you can see that on both sides of the, here you can see around Parliament House or Council House at that time, North Block, South Block, you already have all sorts of barracks coming up and sort of temporary structures being put up in this area. Then over time, Delhi started growing. You can see here a map from 1942, and this line here represents the Central Vista in both pictures. Here's 1956, and you can see that Delhi has become a bigger city. And as demands for space in the city started increasing, the Central Vista started getting built upon building by building. Here is an image of the Central Vista from 1962. Already you can see some new buildings have come about. Here you have the Vayu Bhavan. On this side you have the Rail Bhavan, Udyog Bhavan, Krishi Bhavan on two sides here. Here you can see some old barracks. A new road was added in the middle. Right here, that's Rafi Ahmed Marg, which was not existing. The canals were truncated and was added. And on the two sides here, you can see the barracks that are there from the older times. Right next to Parliament also, you have barracks here. The entire management of the Central Vista lacked a three-dimensional vision. This was the sort of plotting plan that was used later on to build new buildings. You can see here the vista was divided into small plots, and these plots were assigned to different ministries, and everybody started building buildings in a sort of in the manner that they saw fit for their ministry. So you can see this was the only vision that was underpinning the development of the Central Vista. Here's once again that same image I showed you earlier of the Central Vista in the early 1930s, and slowly it got built over. So today, this is what is there. You can see here the buildings that have come up on the two sides. If one were to look at the Central Vista today, then it is quite clear that the development on the two sides are disorderly and incoherent. The architecture is disorderly. You can see here that grand symmetry that was set up by Lutyens has been violated in many different ways. All the buildings are different from one another, and the overall architecture there is disorderly and incoherent. If you look at the type of uses that are there in the Central Vista area, and when I talk of the Central Vista, I'm of course referring to this area which is inside this boundary that you can see here. That's what is referred to as the Central Vista. On this side, you have Rashtrapati Bhavan, North Block, South Block. But all the blue colored uses are administrative facilities where there are government offices. The sort of light purple color here is the legislative facilities. These red color ones are residential facilities, and green color buildings are cultural facilities. There is a hodgepodge of uses here, which is administrative, cultural, residential, legislative, etc. This place was meant to have all the offices of the Government of India, but less than half the ministries of the Government of India are actually located within the Central Vista. The rest of them are scattered all across the city. You can see here these yellow dots scattered outside. Inside the Central Vista, there's only 22 out of the total 51 ministries. More importantly, these red color markings here indicate the offices which have no essential reason for being within the Central Vista. These are offices that could be located elsewhere, but they are in the most central location in Delhi, right next to Parliament and Rashtrapati Bhavan, North Block, South Block. But these are, and these are all in the old barrack-like structures, which officially are referred to as hutments in the Central Vista. If you look at the land use in this area, it's extremely poor. This is very precious center city land, but the buildings are placed in such a way that the land is very, very poorly used, and most of it is a sea of parking that you can see here. If you look at the buildings inside, they are stressed and outdated. The infrastructure inside is very, very poor, and the buildings don't function very well as offices. This place used to be accessible right across. You can see this orange line here. People used to be able to walk right across this, the two north and south blocks. Unfortunately, because of security reasons in this area, a lot of the public movement is very often restricted. The Central Vista Avenue itself, the public space, the garden in the middle, has also got encroached upon by parking, for the buildings that are next to it and other infrastructure uses. If you look at the landscape of this vista, it's quite lackluster. This is not really kind of landscape that's good. The infrastructure that is needed for the Grand Republic Day parades is also very, very poorly organized in this area. The Republic Day arrangements take very long and damage the landscape every year in the best months of the year. And the facilities for civic users in the gardens are very poor also. Lots of tourists come to this area, and the facilities for tourists are also quite inadequate. The Central Vista in the middle of New Delhi, while it's the most important architectural icon for the country, is nothing like the inspiring Capitol complexes of the world. If one were to go to Washington, D.C., the National Mall, and spend a day there, it would be a comfortable and extremely memorable experience. Likewise, if one were to go to Canberra in Australia, there too they have a long vista, and this is a magnificent place. And certainly for those of us who have been to Paris, the Paris's Champs-Élysées is a magnificent example of what public spaces in the middle of cities can be like. Over the decades, many people and many institutions have demanded that the Central Vista be better administered, better developed, and better maintained, and that its heritage should be protected. However, nothing has been done for all these years. It is only now that the government has decided to act on these various demands, and it has structured a comprehensive reimagining and restructuring of the Central Vista. So let me explain the project to you. But before I do that, let me say a few things about the master plan for the project. It started with a sketch developed in response to very broad requirements and minimal information about the site. Most architects are familiar with this sort of a situation. When clients come to them, they have very broad requirements and very little information really to start with. It is through the process of design that these things get finalized. We started off with this initially available map of what the plotting plan there is, which is very rudimentary information. Fortunately, there are lots of fantastic historical studies of the Central Vista, and we were able to dig into these books. We had historic maps to look at. And thank God for Google, because these days from Google, large amounts of information can be gleaned about any place. Based on the information from Google, we were able to reconstruct, and the historical maps, we were able to reconstruct the terrain of the area and make a model of this sort in our office. And we were also able to make a model of what exists there today. And finally, a sketch design for what can be in its place. Let me go back once. This is what is there today. And this is the first sketch design that we produced as we went along. This, once again, is another view of the same thing. This is what we inherited in the 1930s. This is what we have made of it today. And this is what is proposed to be done in its place. These three maps are drawn up similarly, just to give a sense of how this works. Since the first sketch was developed in last October, the master plan has evolved much. This is in October 11th when we submitted it. Then as we started working on it and finding more information, it started evolving. That is 4th of November and 24th of November and 12th of December. And the master plan has continued to evolve as we go along. That's the 15th of March. The master plan will continue to evolve as we consult more people, discover new facts, and see previously unforeseen opportunities. This is the nature of such large projects, that slowly over a period of time, their design gets better and better finalized and brought into focus. What I'm going to describe today is the 15th of March 2020 plan as it stands today. And I don't expect that huge changes will come about to it in the months to come, but there will definitely be small changes as we go along. This is what the present master plan model looks like. And this is another image of that same, which is been much published, and you can see it here. So what are the objectives of the Central Vista project? Okay. And there are 6 objectives of this project. And I'll start with the very first one, which is to modernize Parliament's facilities. So let me start with that right away. We started this project by understanding the existing facilities of the Parliament. We all know it's a round building. You can see it here. Here, that's the round building. Once again, to orient you, this is Rashtrapati Bhavan. This is North Block. This is South Block. Here is the existing Parliament building. We started out by studying the historical plans of Parliament House. The round building was not the first option Baker worked out. First, there was a rectangular building. Then there was a triangular building. He was quite in favor of this sort of a triangular plan. But eventually, Lutyens sort of prevailed upon him to make it a circular plan. Old plans of Parliament House are in poor condition. We found all of these historical maps, and we have been redrawing them, and because we need to eventually retrofit this building. And on the right-hand side are the newly drawn up plans of the same thing. We found old elevations, and below you can see an elevation reconstructed by us from the old elevations. These are also drawn up to better understand the existing facilities architecture. Then we studied how the space is used in the building. You can see here some sketch notes from the site visits of all the people in our office who visited it. And we studied each and every space and what it is used for. We had to study what facilities are there, what is kept next to what are the adjacencies. This is a complex building where there are many users and many different movement routes based on different protocols and security arrangements. And these are drawings of that, of the movement routes. We studied all the furniture here. You can see this is the benches in the Parliament. We studied that to figure out what the seating arrangements are like. This is the library. We studied the library furniture and what it is like. We also surveyed all the additions and changes that have been made to Parliament House over the years. From the right-hand side, you can see here that this is an old picture of Lok Sabha Hall, and you can see that it used to have magnificent light coming in through these windows at the top here. But these windows have all been blocked now, and the lights that have been put up have give a lot of glare, and they're quite harsh. This is the Lok Sabha Hall. The building was also added to. There were floors added on top afterwards to make new offices. You can see the old drawings do not have the floor on top. Presently, there are 2 floors on top that were added afterwards, and that's where the offices were put up. We studied the expansion possibilities. Now, one of the main requirements of the client was that the Lok Sabha is likely to be expanded in the coming years. Today, we have about 545 members, and in the future, we are likely to have up to 800 or 900 members in the Lok Sabha. Now, if you look at the present hall, you can see these columns at the back here. Behind these columns, there used to be a corridor, but even that corridor has been occupied by seats. So the Lok Sabha hall was added to, seating was added at some stage. And today, as you can see in this hall, there is not a single space for a single more seat. There's not a space at all for any addition at all. This is the central hall where the joint sessions happen. This too is jam-packed. Presently, it seats about 430 people on the regular seating. But when joint sessions are held, they put seats, temporary chairs in the aisles, and both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha members have to sit there. That's not the most dignified of arrangements for a republic like ours to hold joint sessions. This hall, Central Hall, also serves as the common lounge. There is no common lounge in the parliament, and these joint session halls, with its benches here, is the lounge where the parliamentarians spend their time as in a lounge. If you look at the infrastructure of the present parliament, just a look at the pictures will make it clear that this is all rather antiquated technology. The microphones are of old type. They cannot be switched off. So there is a lot of noise and the acoustics is extremely poor. If you look at the condition of the building, here are some pictures of the parliament. You can see here the infrastructure. I mean, from the outside, it looks like a magnificent structure, but if one looks at how the building is from inside, it is in a considerable mess. You can see the pipes going in, the cables going in, water seepage on the other side, electrical cables, air conditioning ducts. All of these things have been punctured in, and the building has been added to in an ad hoc manner for years. This has considerably weakened the structure of the building also. In addition to this, nobody can certify today whether this building is earthquake safe or not. And remember that in the past years, Delhi's earthquake risk has been ratcheted up. Now, after all this study, the conclusion that was very inevitable and clear was that Parliament House is a much valued facility and a symbol of India's vibrant democracy. It's a very important structure for India's democracy. However, if one wants to expand the seating in the 2 halls, if one wants to modernize the infrastructure, and if one wants to address the structural safety concerns, a new facility will have to be built to house the parliament. Once this is built, the present building can be appropriately retrofitted, and the 2 facilities, 2 buildings can be used in conjunction with each other so that the 2 together become the ensemble of the Parliament of India. So we started working on the design for the new facilities, and it seemed absolutely appropriate to house it right next to the present parliament in this triangular plot. Now, mind you, this plot next to it, we decided to put a triangular building there. And I'll come back to the site issues. Of course, the design has been evolving. You can see here the very first design was very, very simple. The first one here. And by now it has become it has slowly incorporated all the requirements. That's the 17th version. And I think there is a final one. The sections have also been evolving and the elevations have also been evolving. You can see here various versions as we worked on it. And our office is full of models like this where different trials have been done for what the building would look like. Now, if you look at this in the satellite image today, you can see here very clearly that that's the old parliament. This whole diamond-shaped plot is presently fenced in, and the entire diamond-shaped plot is used for the facilities of the parliament. On this side, of course, is the old circular building of the parliament. And on this side here, in this triangular plot, presently, you can see here, there is car parking, there are police barracks here, there are CRPF barracks, there is a structure for the reception facilities, there is infrastructure, air conditioning infrastructure, etc. There are some nice trees here, but by and large, this plot is an infrastructure and facilities related plot here. So what we decided was to reorganize this plot here, reorganize all the infrastructure and put a triangular building in this plot that would house the new Lok Sabha and the new Rajya Sabha, etc. You can see here the two buildings. You can see one of them is, has a ground cover of 16,000 meters square. It has large courtyards in the middle. That's a round structure, you can see. And on this side is the new facility that is planned. It also has a courtyard, but a smaller one. And so it has about 3,000 meters square more of floor space on the ground. But otherwise, they're similarly sized structures. Here you can see a diagrammatic comparison of the two buildings, the old and the new. On the left-hand side, you can see the round building. It has a corridor on the outside. This is the ground floor. Then this gray colored ring is offices. So the offices are all around it. And here you can see the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, the library, and in the middle is the central hall. And these are the three courtyards you can see. In the new facility here, you have something similar. You have offices ringing the outside. In this case, we have offices directly on the outside. Then we have the Lok Sabha here, the Rajya Sabha here. We have a courtyard around which we have a lounge and dining facility. In the center of the building, we have the sort of sanctorum here. It is the central space. I'll show you more about this. And we have various entrances. Let me take you a little further inside here. The triangular building has 6 entrances you can see here. On the 3 vertices, you have the ceremonial entrances and the VVIP entrances. On the sides here, you have the public entrance. And this one is for the speaker and the vice president. Here, I'm going to take you through more of this plan, but let me just quickly explain. You can see here that this is the Lok Sabha here. This is the Lok Sabha hall. This is the Rajya Sabha hall. This is the courtyard with the lounge all around it. There's a library here. This is what we are calling the Constitution Hall. And on this side, you have the ceremonial entrances and the committee rooms. And on this side, you have offices. This is the ground floor. This is the first floor. First floor obviously does in the halls. These are double height halls. So there's nothing more here except public seating and public access. Surrounding it, we have offices all around here. And we have dining halls here. You go further, this is the second floor. You can, this is, and this has the, I'm sorry, this is wrongly marked here. This is the lower ground. There's offices all around. And you can see the, this space here is below the halls. That's the lower ground, sorry. And this one is terraces. I'm sorry, I made a mistake here. And that's the lower ground. It doesn't matter. What's important here is that the entire building has a rigorous underpinning geometry. Now, many of our iconic structures have rigorous geometries underpinning them. This is a standard feature of most sort of sacred buildings, of memorable iconic buildings. Temples have geometries underlying them, and it's transformations of that geometry that lead up to the final structure. The present parliament is based on a rigorous triangular grid of 3.65 meters. If you go a little bit closer, you will see that every line in this structure falls on that grid, giving it a certain rigor and order that is essential for this sort of an architecture. The aesthetic sources and references for this building are, of course, the old Parliament building. The old Parliament is a much valued structure. The two, we want them to work together. And so this becomes the big reference point for us. Its interiors, its finishes are what we are taking clues from to do the interiors for the new building. Besides this, all of the Central Vista's old buildings have magnificent flooring patterns, geometric inlays. All of these are things that we are learning from to make in the new building. The ceilings have this marvelous patterns on them. They're drawn and we're using those too. The textiles are rich. They are from the traditions, Indian traditions, and they are also what we are learning from. The jalis have intricate patterns that we are using also in the new building. And the elements in the old architecture, like the the lampshades and various other features, are also what are used in the new building. The seating layout in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha was of much concern. We studied many different seating layouts across the world. For example, in United Kingdom, you have the famous opposing benches. In Belgium, you have a semicircle. In Cuba, you have a classroom type seating. We decided to continue with the horseshoe-shaped seating that we have in the present parliament, and our new one has the similar sort of a seating arrangement. If you look at the Lok Sabha hall, in the triangular building, this colored area is the area that is used for the Lok Sabha. If I come a little closer, you can see here that this is the Lok Sabha chamber. This is the seating arrangement there. This outside area is the lobby that is locked up when the Lok Sabha is functioning. These are lounges on the two sides because Lok Sabha, when the proceedings are going on, they spend many long hours here, and the members are in this area. Nobody else can come in here. This whole area at the back here are the various administrative offices of the Lok Sabha, with the Speaker's office and various other administrative offices needed for the functioning of this area. If one compares the present Lok Sabha chamber, which is in red here, you can see that the present Lok Sabha chamber is very small, and this new one is much larger because we have to fit in almost double the number of people that are there. Here's a comparison of the old Lok Sabha, present Lok Sabha chamber. Here you can see the yellow area here is 470 square meters, and the seating here takes up almost 1,300 square meters, partly because there are more people and partly because the seating in this area is much better than the seating arrangements are much better than the present ones. I'll explain how that is so. The lobby also is a pretty tight lobby here. There is a larger one. You can see the oranges in comparison, and the administrative offices are similarly sized, but better organized in the new building. The emergency evacuation facilities are also very poor in the present Lok Sabha chamber. There's a manhole in the middle, this red spot. We are going to have better arrangements that you can see here. The central hall, many people wonder why the Lok Sabha, expanded Lok Sabha cannot be held in the central hall. But if you compare the present central hall with the new Lok Sabha chamber, you can see that here too, the area is very small. It is practically being doubled in the new one, and the lobby also is small. And the central hall has absolutely no office space around it, and the offices are absolutely integral to the functioning of the Lok Sabha, because the speaker comes directly from the chamber and goes into the Lok Sabha chamber here, and all the officers have to be located right next to the chamber. The Lok Sabha chamber, for all the patterns we are using in inspiration from our national bird, and it's something that we used in all the patterns here. So these are sketches from the textile that we are using, and the false ceiling that we are going to do for the hall, etc., are all inspired by the national bird, the peacock. And that's an image of the new hall you can see here. As you can see, that's the chair of the speaker and all the seating arrangements all around it. Here's another view head on, where you can see the speaker at one end and the chairs all around. And that's the view from the speaker's chair. Once again, you can see that the hall will have lots of natural light from these windows at the top. And so it will not be as dead to the outside as the present chamber is. Here you can also see on top the chairs that are there for the public galleries. On top you can see here, and below here you can see the entrances from where this one, for example, is from where the president would come in for the joint session. Those of you who are wondering why there is no joint session hall in the new facility, this hall, the Lok Sabha hall, has been designed such that at any given point of time, it will hold, I mean, for the largest seating capacity here is 876 seats, but the seats have been designed large enough so that these will hold actually 1,350 seats when joint sessions are held in this hall. So that will also be held here. That's the pathway leading up to the Lok Sabha chamber from the outside. That's the pathway leading in. I'm not going to take you on too detailed a tour. There is a whole presentation that deals only with the Parliament House, but that's not the issue here. That's the lounge in the lobby next to Lok Sabha. And that's the speaker's chamber, as you can see here, and so forth. The Rajya Sabha is a similarly shaped hall here. You can see the orange colored area is the Rajya Sabha. That's the Rajya Sabha hall. Similar to the other one, you have the seating in the middle. That's the chamber itself. That's the lobby outside. That's the Honorable Chairman, the Vice President's chambers and offices here on this side. And for comparison, the present Rajya Sabha looks of this size, and what we have is of this size. Here, once again, is a comparison of the two. The present Rajya Sabha is this small hall. The new one is this size. So size is much larger, and the arrangements are more spacious. This one is based on our national flower, the lotus. And here we have patterns that we have used for that in the false ceiling, etc. And this is an image of the Rajya Sabha chamber, similar but different from this. The colors, if you're wondering, red and green are the traditional colors, and we have continued with those, and everybody wants to continue with those. That's the Rajya Sabha hall you can see here with its seating arrangements, and that's another view of the Rajya Sabha chamber, as you can see. That's the Honorable Chairman's office and various other arrangements. Once again, I'm not going through everything here. You can see that I told you that the seating arrangements in the Lok Sabha are actually pretty cramped today. There are benches of this sort. The members don't have a desk in front, do not have any place where they can place anything that they want to. They do not have modern equipment here, and they have to walk in front of other members if they want to get to their seat in the middle. So corner seats are prized, and it's a very, very cramped arrangement. Cozy, one might say, but also inadequate if you look at it from facilities point of view. The new seating that has been proposed has benches where only two people to a bench. This is the arrangement in many of our assemblies today and in the states. And in this case, if two people come on one bench, and as I told you, when there is a joint session, there'll be three people. These benches are large enough to hold three people. Similarly, for the Rajya Sabha, the seating arrangements have been improved much. Here are a couple of pictures of the sort of furniture that is being developed for the area. The technology, of course, will be highly upgraded. present technology is antiquated. We will have extremely sophisticated technology with uh, touch screens on each of the desks and microphones that can be controlled, etc. The acoustics also will be very, very sophisticated. We have now ringing the entire building are offices on all sides. There are 120 offices. The lower ground and ground floor offices look like this. All offices have natural light and ventilation, which is not the case in today's offices in the present building. And this is a view of one of the offices that you have there. This is a view of one of the corridors that leads up to the different offices. Now, on the third vertex here, you have the central lounge and courtyard. So this is a view of the lounge that will be there for the MPs. And this is where the members all hang out. This is an extremely important space for the parliament because this is where all the informal meetings happen, all the discussions happen, and members of parliament get to bring their guests here and meet with them here. They're not allowed to take them into the main chamber at all. That's the courtyard in the middle of the building where we want to put the national tree, a large banyan tree. And you can see the lounge is arranged all around it here. And at the back here, you have the library. On top are dining facilities because many members spend whole days here, even going late into the night. So on the right-hand side, you can see the dining facilities on top, and that is what they will look like. Here is the library of the new parliament, and this is not really a full library. It's only a place for people to sit down during the day and work on their notes and while the sessions are going on. This has to be located right next to the hall because they have to rush in for voting whenever voting is announced. Now, I told you in the center of this building is the heart of it, the sanctum sanctorum here, the Garbhagriha if you want. It's called Constitution Hall. There are three parts to it. The first is these three approaches leading up to the center, which will have public galleries of this sort, which will have some displays for all the visitors, all the children, all the tourists, all the public members of public who come here. These will be galleries with exhibitions of material related to the parliament and the constitution. In the center is what we call the Constitution Hall. This is a memorable, evocative space right in the middle with lots of light coming in from top. It has sculptures of parliamentarians with light coming in on top, sculptures of parliamentarians, and this in a sense represents the cosmos, and this will have images of representing the diversity of India, and below is the level which has the level of governance, as we call it. Here you can see another image of the central hall, and that's a view of the ceiling there with a natural light flooding in on top. And this is the image, one of the images that the people who come visiting here will carry with them when they. At one side of this is a very important space called the Constitution Gallery. This is the place where you can see here the Constitution Gallery on this side. And this is where the Constitution will be displayed. This is the Constitution of India displayed in a glass case. And you can see that is the Constitution Gallery where this document will be displayed. After all, this is the most important evocative space for our parliament, and this is meant to give people who come here something memorable that they carry with them as an image of the place. Of course, this has natural light flooding in from top and various other things. If you look at the sections and elevations, you can see that the two buildings have been made so that they are complementary to each other. They're not trying, this is similarly sized. You can see in the sections here, this is the section of the old parliament building. This is a section of the new parliament. They're similarly, the heights are similar. Here are some sections from the new building. Here's another one running through the courtyard you can see here. These were studies that we did for the elevation, and I'm just going to leave you with a couple of images of the final elevations that have been worked out here, as you can see. And these are the two buildings right next to each other. I've taken a lot of time in explaining the Parliament House because the design for that is most underway. The rest of the buildings are, I'm not going to spend so much time. They're also being developed. On one, the master plan, I come back to the master plan. So this is the old Parliament. Here is the new one. And right next to here, part of the master plan is a proposal for chambers for members of parliament. These are offices for all members of parliament, 1,000 offices in the plots, which presently have some ministry buildings which are to be located inside these central secretariat buildings later on. I don't have much more to add about the chambers of parliament for members of parliament just now. Now, the second objective of the Central Vista project is to improve productivity and efficiency of administration. And the way of doing this is to create a central secretariat with modern office facilities. That when I talk about the central secretariat, it is these buildings that I'm referring to here. That's the whole secretariat. Now, presently, I told you the ministry offices are located all over Delhi. Some of them are in the Central Vista, and the 51 ministries house approximately 51,000 employees. Some of them sit in the Central Vista, others are spread across Delhi. 22 ministries, to be precise, with 41,000 employees are presently working within this dotted area, which is the Central Vista. The remaining members are located, employees and the ministries are located outside. Sorry. If you look at the ministry buildings presently, they are all located in these areas here on the two sides. And the office buildings along Rajpath are of extremely poor quality at this point of time. You can see some of the images here. You can see that there is very poor service integration. There is no central air conditioning. Each room has a separate AC hanging from the outside. These are the most important ministry offices of the government of India. This is, and you can see here that there is very inefficient use of land. Parking is haphazard. If you look at the insides, the infrastructure is also outdated and the facilities are very inadequate. There is no coherent identity to all of these buildings. And it is very clear to anybody that the scatter of offices or the quality of present office buildings are not conducive to efficiency and productivity of administrative functioning. So improving productivity and efficiency of this area by building a central secretariat is one of the key aims of this project. Now, as architects, all of us know that the kind of workspace you work in determines the productivity of organizations and determines the efficiency and sustainability of organizations. That is why every year there are new books produced about what offices should be like, and office architecture is of extreme importance. Rationality is important, efficiency is important here, and that is, we all know this quite well. So today, organizational efficiency, which is represented by this vertical arrow here, is low, and organizational productivity is also low. And this is the area in which you can say we are presently standing. And what the aim of this project is to build central secretariat and improve organizational efficiency and improve organizational productivity by improving facilities management, furniture layout, services, scans, new buildings, and even the location of buildings. So these are the 4 plots inside which the central secretariat is to be built. You will notice that these plots are existing office building plots, and some of them have some other types of buildings. For example, the vice president's house is here, but these are not in, these are fenced plots right now. Inside these same plots, the idea is to build new buildings that are far more efficient and to build conferencing facilities and archives and expand the archives also. So what this will do, it will consolidate all the ministry offices at one place. So I already showed you this diagram, which shows that 51,000 employees in 51 ministries are spread all across Delhi. I told you that 22 ministries with approximately 41,000 employees are within Central Vista. Now, the interesting thing is that within Central Vista, there are also 9,000 defense personnel working, these orange spots you can see here, in these hutments and barrack structures. There is no reason for them to be located here. These are very central locations, but these employees of the defense departments can be working in other places also. So the first thing that is being done, first thing that is being done for these 9,000 who do not need to be located in this end is to move them out of here into new offices that are being custom built for these people. So out of the total, 9,000 employees will move out of the Central Vista, and these ministry offices which are outside will be brought into the Central Vista. So 9,000 will move out, 10,000 will come in, and the total population will be 51,000. The important thing to note is that the transfer will increase the total number of employees in the Central Vista from 50,000 to 51,000. So the population increase in the Central Vista is only going to be 1,000 in a total of 50,000 employees. So it's not the number of people who are increasing, but people who are located poorly outside who are being brought into the Central Vista in these 10 buildings that you can see. The office buildings themselves, these are the 10 office buildings inside which these people will be located. 51,000 people, so 5,100 people per building. A very important feature to remember is that the Central Secretariat will be a transit-oriented development. Now, what does that mean? Take a look at this map. This is the Central Vista here, as you can see, and these are the metro routes of Delhi. You can see that two very important metro routes cut perpendicularly across Central Vista here. Okay, and through these routes, Central Vista is connected to all of Delhi by metro. Now, what is proposed is that once these office buildings are built, there will be an underground people mover that will be built in a loop all around here below the ground level, which will connect the metro to all of these buildings. For those of you who have traveled abroad and gone to airports such as Dubai or Singapore, you may know that moving from terminal to terminal is often done in this sort of an underground shuttle of this sort. It's a simple, this is not on rails, this is actually runs on rubber wheels, and it's an electric vehicle that connects, moves people in automated carriages of this sort all around. And this, for example, is from an airport, and you can see here that this is how people can be moved. So people would be able to get out of the metro, get into one of these people movers and get to their office building, which would be a kilometer away, but at top speed. So there would be a lot of incentive to use the metro, and large portion of the employees who will be able to use public transport. So it's a totally transit-oriented development. There will also be an overground bus route that will connect all of the buildings, and this would have some, it could have electrical buses of this sort. So you have entire office structure hanging off a public transport system. Now, if I look at the buildings proper, you can see that there are 10 office buildings inside these 4 plots. And by 4 plots, I mean these red lines that you can see here, plot 1, plot 2, plot 3, plot 4. All these 4 plots are presently fenced plots. These are not public spaces. There are already buildings inside here, but they are very inefficiently laid buildings, and only they can not house efficiently the entire population that's needed there. If I were to zoom into one of the plots here, plot 3, and see it here, then inside one plot, there will be 3 donut-shaped buildings, 1, 2, and 3 here. Each of these buildings has a courtyard in the middle, and it's a ring, efficient ring all around. There will be a road all around it inside the fence, an internal loop road through which you will be able to access all the buildings. Even today, there are such loop roads around the present buildings. There will be some parking for visitor parking at this level too. And then these are the points at which you will get entrances and exits, and fire entrances also need to be provided in this area. If I look at the buildings, all three buildings will be connected by a common basement, thereby making the basement very efficient and able to hold a lot of infrastructure and parking. There is a basement drawing of all the three buildings together. You can see here, this is the underground shuttle which comes to the basement level, and from there people will be able to go up to the lobbies of the buildings. You can see that the rest of it is, this is one building here, and the next one. Here, this is more clear drawing. You can see that the blue color is all parking. The green color is all amenity spaces and storage and utilities here. If you take one building and one zooms into one building here, you can see that it's, I told you, it's a donut shaped building. It's a large building, 150 meters by 134 meters with a courtyard in the middle, a large courtyard, 81 meters by 60 meters. You can see some trees planted in the middle. I'll go back to this drawing here of the basement. You can see that here there is no basement and we have left it as earth so that these trees can grow in these slides here in the courtyard here. As you come here on the ground floor, I'll just quickly go through this plan. These plans are picture of efficiency. These are rationally planned office buildings. When you come in here, you get entrance lobbies. This is the circulation through the entire building you can see here. This is all the vertical circulation, the staircases and the elevators. You can see here, this is the cafes at the ground floor level. These are the services, the toilets, the infrastructure services, and the far end are all the common shared amenities like conference halls, etc. And here are the office buildings. The ground floor has few offices, but more common facilities. If you take the typical floor plan, you can see here, this is how you arrive up through these vertical circulation areas, the elevators and the four corners, and the staircases. This is the corridor that connects all the offices. You can see here, these are the amenities, toilets and shared facilities. These are all the shared amenities here, and these are all the office spaces here. Once again, a complete picture of efficiency. If you look at the cross section here, you can see here the basements below and various other. This is the courtyard in the middle without the trees, and this is what the courtyard will look like after the trees are done. From the outside, the building will be stone clad and match with all the Lutyens buildings. The courtyard itself will be steel and glass and will have these sort of large trees so that all the offices overlook the courtyard, and the courtyard itself provides a shaded place for people to have lunch. You can see that the buildings are approximately the same height as the present buildings. Here is a section through the Rajpath, and I've drawn this to show you something very interesting. Presently, when one walks on Rajpath, because of the trees on the two sides and the sight line which is formed by the blockage of the trees, you cannot see the buildings on the two sides. And even later on, after these buildings are built, when you walk on Rajpath, the view will not have changed one bit. One sees aerial images of the development and thinks that a lot of new buildings are going to come up, but the view from Rajpath will not change at all much. If you take a cross section right through here, you can see the basements, you can see the courtyard, you can see some sort of covering over the courtyards like the Habitat Center covering. These designs are still being finalized as we talk. Here is one study elevation from the outside. You can see that the buildings are all designed to be lower than India Gate, which is 42 meters high. The Central Conference Center is an important part of the Central Secretariat. It's going to be located here. Presently, there is something called Vigyan Bhavan, which has some conferencing facilities. They are not adequate for the needs of present day needs. They are not modern. facilities, and a central conference center will also be built along with the 10 office buildings. That's where it will be located. The archives is an important, this is where the documents are stored. The archives is an old heritage structure, and it has been added to later on. And it will, the addition that has been made will be removed. The old heritage structure will be kept, and a new addition will be made to have better improved offices for the archives to function. So that's the old heritage structure, which is going to remain. This is the new structure that has been put in place, which is to be removed. This is in the old heritage structure, beautiful architecture from the inside. This will continue to be the archives, the National Archives. The storage facilities of this sort and very many other facilities that you have inside are to be modernized. And these are some old structures. The old structure will be retrofitted and improved and cleaned up to bring out its older glory. You can see that's where the National Archives will be. So together, the offices, the 10 office buildings, the central conferencing facility, and the National Archives will form the Central Secretariat. That is where the administrative offices of the Government of India will be located. Now, third objective of the project is to provide adequate facilities for Vice President and the Prime Minister. So facilities for the Vice President. Presently, the Vice President's residence is located here on the Central Vista. It's not the best location. It's for the Vice President. If you look at the facilities themselves, they are not adequate and up to what is needed for the stature of the Vice President of India. They are disturbed by all the activity that is all around, and the movement of the Vice President also disturbs all the activities all around. So what has been decided is that this plot here, you can see on this side, which is north of North Block, which presently has hutments and barracks with army defense offices. These will be moved out, and in this plot will be the Vice President's residence. It is in a tucked away location, not very visible from the outside. Any case has to be in a secure area, and it is in this place that the Vice President's facilities will be built. I don't have much more to add here. Work is still ongoing for Vice President facilities. Facilities for the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister's residence is to be built in the opposite quarter of the Vice President. You can see here presently there are hutments in this area with barracks-like structures. They are also, these people do not need to be located in Central Vista. The Prime Minister is located outside. Each office, his residence and office, his residence is being brought here, Prime Minister's residence, and this would be equivalent to the Vice President's residence. Once again, this is not a very visible location. It certainly is not on Rajpath or in the central of Central Vista, as it is believed sometimes. But this is where and it is equivalent to the Vice President's residence on the other side. This plot here is for the Special Protection Group, the Special Protection Group offices and facilities. The hutments in this diamond-shaped plot, I told you is the Parliament. This diamond-shaped plot has hutments in it. Those hutments, by hutments, they are not residential hutments, they are office hutments. Once again, these hutments, very centrally located right next to North Block, South Block, Parliament, etc. These have army offices which do not need to be located here. There are training colleges, etc. here. They are being located elsewhere. And this is where the office of the Prime Minister of India will be located. Presently, the Prime Minister's office is located in South Block in this little corner here, but now will be located here. And this will be a garden attached to this facility. So third objective, as I said, was providing adequate facilities for Vice President and Prime Minister. Fourth objective is to refurbish and better equip the Central Vista Avenue itself, the public space of the Central Vista. Now that's the middle space which I'm referring to. Okay, that also is a grand setting for national events. That's where the Republic Day Parade is held. This is an important civic garden for Delhi's residents, an important place for tourists. And this is a great tourist attraction. As you can see here in this picture, you have India Gate here. Now, if you look at the Central Vista closely, you will see that it is under much stress and in a state of disrepair. Its lawns and its landscape are tired and wilting. You can see here the quality of lawn that you have here. Its canals are dry, usually. Many of its trees are dying because they are now very old. The Republic Day arrangements, you can see here, take weeks on end to put up and dismantle, and they completely destroy the landscape once every year. The traffic junctions are really very busy and hazard to cross for pedestrians and tourists. The gardens themselves have very little facilities. People use them. All gardens in India are used, but this is not well equipped. The public conveniences, this is a toilet. There are very few public conveniences, very poorly located. Tourist buses are haphazardly parked everywhere. Places need to be created for this. The pathways you can see here are crumbling. The pathways are very, very poor. You can see here the kind of infrastructure that is in place. The gardens have walkways that are not paved, and the gardens are very difficult to maintain. The signage is uncoordinated and incoherent in most places. The vendors disrupt traffic. They are very important for the place, but they disrupt traffic. And the plazas are all dispiriting places of this sort. So all of these things need to be refurbished and upgraded. And the plan is underway to improve the entire public space in the middle. And that's a general drawing. This is what exists, and this is what it will be. But let me take you in little more detail. First of all, the extent and boundaries. You see, this is the boundary of the formed by the compound walls of adjacent buildings at present. Okay? However, this boundary, this present space has been encroached upon by parking, etc. And so this blue line is what indicates what is the publicly accessible area. This is being rationalized, and this red line is exactly the same amount of area that will be available for the public space. Only it will be now rationalized and put to better use. Many of the areas of the Central Vista Avenue are unkempt and not landscaped and underutilized, such as this area here, which you can see, this is in the center of Delhi, part of the Central Vista, but very, very poorly utilized. Nobody can use this sort of place well. So these areas, which you can see in brown here, are to be all better organized. And so the entire avenue, its basic structure will remain entirely the same, but all the areas will be utilized. The lawns at present are tired and lack proper irrigation infrastructure. You can see here, this is the way they are watered. You can see that the Republic Day arrangements damage them completely, and you can see the arrangement. This is the drawing of where the lawns are at present. In future, the lawns will be better organized, and this is how they will be put in place. And the lawns, the structure of the lawns is being made in such a way that the Republic Day arrangements match with it. The trees originally used to be they were laid out in a very orderly fashion, and the species selection was very deliberate, well thought out species selection here. However, over a period of time, the trees have been added to, and the layout has become haphazard, and the selection of species has also become ad hoc. So you can see here a picture, an additional row has been planted upon, more trees are planted. You can see a dry canal here. This is the picture of it right now. So, and a whole variety of species is there. There is an ad hoc sort of selection of trees that seems to have been done over a period of time. The original trees on the avenue have also come to the end of their life cycle, and this is a major issue. All of these issues need to be dealt with. You can see there are many trees like this that are dying or about to die in the next decade. And a very detailed tree survey is underway. It got slowed down because of the lockdown, and planting strategy, etc., are being prepared to address the problems that are identified above. Slowly, we will work out a strategy that keeps the basic structure of the avenue in place and keeps the planting strategy, makes a good planting strategy for it. The canals, as you can see here, are often dry. They are painted blue to give them a look, then they look terrible afterwards. During Republic Day, these sort of bridges are built, temporary bridges are built on top of the canals. They destroy the canals and make it very difficult to use. So these canals will be refurbished also, and some permanent bridges provided so that the Republic Day arrangements don't need to put in temporary bridges, and people can cross the canals in any case more easily, even in regular times. The sidewalks and pathways in many places are non-existent and very poorly located. So a whole proper set of pathways which basically reflect the existing structure or take off from the existing structure of primary, secondary, and tertiary walkways are being built. The vendors who have no proper allocated place and no facilities are also being provided proper places precisely where they can find the business and where the tourists can find them and the people can come find them. And vending zones will be located in this area also. Amenities like these toilets are being, we'll have to create more amenities. Presently, there are amenities only at the two ends of the vista, right across. This is a 2-kilometer distance. So we need to provide amenities at more frequent intervals so that people can use them more easily. Parking is haphazard today. Visitors come and park on the main Rajpath Road. Actually, this is the only designated parking area, and along the Rajpath, people are allowed to park. You can see all the yellow here and the yellow here, and a few other public parking areas. So these areas beyond the canals and between the building boundaries will become parking areas. Of course, there is no entry into the buildings directly from here. This is entirely visitor parking. This parking should be quite adequate for the visitors who come here, even on important occasions. This area is anyways used for parking during Republic Day parades. And in future, if more parking is required, this can be converted into basement parking, additional basement parking. But this is 2 decades from now if it is needed, just in the way that Champs-Élysées has parking below ground. The area around India Gate is a very popular destination, but very, very poorly organized area. Poor fencing, there is a road here, it's not a nice area. So that the landscape is being improved in this area. The traffic junctions are also being improved so that it's easier for visitors to cross. We would like to do these sort of underpasses so that the traffic can move and enjoy the vista and the people can go below. And this is what is planned here. Republic Day arrangements are also being looked at very thoroughly. This is the present disorganized arrangement of stalls. This is the more organized arrangement that is being planned out. This is the present in situ stands which are built. Brick and mortar stands are built every year and broken down, every year and broken down. And now instead of it, we are planning to use retractable bleachers of this sort, which can be transported to the place and brought in and brought out. They are being used also at present a little bit in some of the areas, but this is how to be done. All the barricades of this sort will, they destroy the lawns and they will be removed. This is where the fences are put up. Instead, we'll use better quality barricades and the fencing will also be organized better. And the bridges I already told you about. Instead of building temporary bridges of this sort, there will be permanent bridges. Now I'm coming to the 5th objective of this project, which is to strengthen cultural and recreational facilities in the Central Vista. The IGNCA building, which is located at present in this plot and which is to have one of the office, which is going to become one of the office plots. The IGNCA building will be moved to this part of the hexagon. The hexagon will have all the many of the cultural facilities. It already has NGMA and it has here Hyderabad House on the other side. This is Hyderabad House at one side here. Across from it will be the IGNCA building. Since it is mirroring this building, the new IGNCA building will be based on the plan of the Hyderabad House, but it will be extended further. As you can see here, This is some tentative first blocking drawings for the new IGNCA that is to come up on the other side of Hyderabad House. I don't want to say more about this because work is still underway for that. National Museum, which is located in a small building here. It's an extremely important institution, and this National Museum is to be moved to the north and south blocks. This is perhaps one of the biggest moves of this project. These buildings presently are government buildings which house the ministries of the government of India, and they are now to be turned into museums. So this will, one of the museums on the south block, the other in the north block, both of these become museums like the Victoria Memorial in Calcutta, or the Louvre, which used to be the Palace of the King, has now been converted into a great museum. In the same way, these magnificent buildings of Lutyens, which today are the sort of a symbol of the government, now become the symbol of the people in a sense. What looks like this today, someday we'll have banners which will proclaim the exhibitions that are being held there. And people will be able to walk up Raisina Hill freely without having to, without being stopped here because these are ministry buildings. So instead of standing outside on this road and gaping at the buildings and what is going on inside, children of the future will be able to walk into these museums and appropriate them as their own. So a north block, which looks like this today, or if I bring it closer, this is what it looks like. Someday might have an exhibition of space, Indian space program or something like this. On the far end of the vista, on the bank of Jamuna, on axis is planned the New India Garden. This is a garden to commemorate 75 years of India's independence, a pathway to be created right across from Central Vista to this area. And the other end of the vista also here is to be created in the presidential estate, a arboretum of now, presently, if you look at the president's estate, this is what it looks like. It's about 400 acres. It's a vast area. It's highly secure. Nobody can go into this red-lined area today. Once in a while, they open it up for viewing the Mughal gardens here once a year. And visitors can go in to see the Rashtrapati Bhavan, which is at this point here. Now, when this area was designed by Lutyens, this is where the main Rashtrapati Bhavan was. And here were the quarters for the people and some other structures which are facilities for the people who maintain. Over a period of time, this entire area has got built up with quarters. There are about 1,200 houses inside the presidential estate. That is the staff of the president. And this area here remains as an open area. In this area, there are some farms and orchards, which if they are rationalized, then it is possible to carve out a 50-acre area out of here, which can be accessed directly from the outside and can become a public park, a public arboretum. So this is a sketch of what this can be. And in this place, the idea is to have in greenhouses some sort of a place where the endangered plant species of India is protected and showcased. It's a learning center. It's not just a public garden, it's a learning center. So what looks like this today, someday might look like this, and this is 50 acres of more public space in this area. Finally, I come to the end. The objective of the Central Vista project is to extend the vista and expand public spaces. I already told you how the vista is being extended. Presently, the Central Vista is from Rashtrapati Bhavan to India Gate up to this hexagon here. But on the east here, it is being extended by creating a facility on the Jamuna, which is called the New India Garden. And on the west, it is being extended in a sense by creating a public arboretum at the other end. So a 3-kilometer vista is becoming a 6-kilometer vista. The second objective is to expand public space in the Central Vista. Presently, this is what the Central Vista looks like. The orange areas here are all secure compounds at this point. These are not accessible places. People cannot walk in freely into these areas today. The green area is what is the public area. And you can go up Raisina Hill here a little bit. So this is about 80 hectares of area that is public. In future, when this is done, the public area will be expanded so that you have you have this area here because the north and south block get extended, and you have this area at the back. And what this does is add 75 acres more of public space to this area. And along with this, the iconography of power in the Central Vista is also getting transformed, because just now on the hill are the two buildings of government. These now become buildings of the museums of India. So with that, let me stop. I want to once again reiterate that I have the privilege of talking about all of this work, but there are a vast number of people who are doing this work. First of all, there is the people in the ministry who are running this project, working on it. There is the CPWD that people are working on. And in our office itself, there's a huge team of people working. There's a whole bunch of consultants and advisors working on this project. Thank you very much. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the interesting presentation, which highlighted the evolution and the thought process about the Central Vista. And I think it is still in the stage of evolution. There are a few questions that actually the question answer box is flooded with many questions, but some of them you have already answered. But still there are many questions which are talking about the environmental and heritage aspects, the environmental clearance and the heritage issues. So if you can highlight more about like what are the environmental precautions considered for this project, and what are the heritage aspects which you have considered, you can just highlight more about these two aspects.
Well, you can see here that uh, the, the original Lutyens Baker plan for the Central Vista is being uh, 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 um, uh, um, uh, strengthened more than being diminished. The structure of the streets, the old buildings, and the entire structure of the gardens and the areas is being maintained as it was. What is being added to was also envisaged one day during that time, that the two sides would have office buildings, and that is what is being added to. So in some sense, this plan is completely in keeping with the architecture as it was proposed, the heritage architecture that was there. So that is one aspect about heritage. So it completely respects the heritage of the area. And in fact, it, in my view, even strengthens the heritage aspects of this area. With regard to the environmental issue, there are two things. One is public space in this area is being expanded, not diminished. The second aspect is that this this entire area in the green space in the middle is being maintained as a green space. There is nothing that is changing in that. There are lots, this project has been vetted thoroughly by for an environmental permission. There are lots of very, very strict requirements that have to be followed, both during the phase of construction and finally. And so each and every aspect of heritage issues is being done in accordance with the environment, the requirements of the environmental regulations of this area. So in that sense, it matches requirements. It's strengthening, it's improving and strengthening the landscape, and it is also protecting the heritage of the area. So it's actually a tribute to the Lutyens Baker plan, and it's doing what has been sort of, in a sense, demanded for all these years.
There is another question regarding the parameters or the standards that were followed for calculating the adequacy of infrastructure, all types of infrastructure. What parameters or the standards have been?
they're the standard parameters for all infrastructure that is needed for office buildings. The National Building Code, etc., determine it says how much infrastructure you have to provide. But I think what perhaps is concerning the questioner is as follows. Uh, uh, when you see a plan like this, it seems like, oh my God, a lot is being added to in this area, and infrastructure is going to get overloaded, which is why I showed the slides, which showed that the actual population of this area is not going to change much at all. In 50,000, presently there are 50,000 people, there are going to be 51,000 people there. So the load on the infrastructure is not going to significantly increase at all in this area. 1,000 people in 50,000 people, you can understand, is not. In fact, adding new infrastructure is going to be done, modernizing is going to be done, but it's not the quantum that needs to increase. Neither will this stress the area by adding new trips to the area in terms of traffic trips. Also, the fact that it is being made a transit-oriented development will make it a very much, will actually end up promoting public transport rather than diminishing it. So it's, sometimes that aerial image of the project makes it appear as if suddenly some vast new numbers of buildings are, yes, new buildings are going to come up. But buildings don't cause stress. The stress is caused by the people in the buildings. You see, you might build a whole empty building, doesn't really create stress. It's the people that create stress. Now, if you look at the number of people in there, that's not changing. So the stress is not likely to increase hugely. Okay. The few other facilities that are being added are, in any case, the people are already there. The parliament will increase by about 500 members and attendant staff. And these are not huge numbers that are not dealt with. A 30, 40,000 square foot building would hold that many people.
Yes, sir. There is another interesting question about the geometry. It was a circle in case of the old parliament building, and you talked about the addressing the geometry. So there is a question, why triangle now for the
Well,
next building?
If you look at the functional requirements, and if you look at the site, if first of all, in just a simple, straightforward, functional and site-related way, a triangular building makes immense amount of sense. You can see there that we have achieved to pack in lots of facilities in the most efficient sort of way. So one way is efficiency, functional requirements, the context itself demands a triangular plot. Remember that Baker did not want to build a circular building. The old parliament was not intended, I mean, it was, he would have rather built a triangular structure also. It lends itself more easily. The circular building has become very powerful. It became eventually a very powerful symbol. It remains. Putting a building next to it also had to have a pure form to make it a sort of a iconic, memorable structure. We thought that the triangle would serve it best. Triangles are also part of all sorts of sacred geometries of all different faiths. So that's another sort of aspect to that triangle.
Sir, another important question, most of them are posing that question. They are slightly skeptical about the dichotomy that this Central Vista transformation is more for the governance or for maintaining the public space, the vibrant public space. Right now this Central Vista is, though there are lack of infrastructure for the public, or the landscaping is not right in the place, there are no amenities, still it is functioning one of the most loved public spaces. So there are lot many questions addressing that. So I will like you to address a little bit about this dichotomy and the way you have addressed it.
See, you've seen the presentation. This question, all public spaces work. Whether they in India, given this kind of stress that our spaces have, everything works. You can say any stress space today works because it's used, it's worked. We also love it because it's open space, it's nice, feels good, but it could be much better. Now, in making it better, we should not destroy its character. And that is what we have tried to do. First of all, the space is not being reduced by a square inch. Okay, so that's an important thing to keep in mind. Many people fear that the public space is being invaded to make the buildings. It's not true. It's all the buildings that are proposed are where presently inside secure compounds. They are not publicly accessible spaces. The second issue is the basic structure of the landscape being maintained. 100% it is being maintained. The Rajpath is as it will be, the tree planting will be as it is, the canals will be where they are, the lawns will be better, they will be better irrigated. The arrangements for Republic Day will take shorter time and make the vista available for longer. The area around India Gate, if you have really walked around that area, you will see it's quite a dispiriting place. We Indians have, we have, I think it's a good quality. We learn to enjoy, even if there is inadequate things, we learn to enjoy it. There's no question. I think that's a nice character for our part. But it could be better also, and we enjoy it more. This is what the idea is. I'm not saying that this is not a good space. It is a much loved space. It's a magnificent avenue. Okay, so there's no question about that. The question is, can it be better? Can the infrastructure be better? Can the amenities be better? Can the paving be better? Do we have to have such sort of shoddy paving? Do we have to have shoddy lighting? Should we have poor quality of signage? Can't this all be better? So that's the idea. And that's what the presentation also told you. We are solving simple functional problems as we go along in a way that keeps the structure in place.
There is also a question like the buildings that are going to be retrofitted, or some of the buildings are going to be reused for something. So can you comment more about that retrofitting aspect?
I can't say too much just now. We know that the north and south block, I can't say because work is to be done on it. Okay. We know that north and south block will need some retrofitting to make them better. If you actually went inside the north and south block today, or if you went inside the parliament building, you will notice that the ad hoc changes that have been made, the poor maintenance over the years, have completely devastated these old buildings. Anybody who's actually been inside will feel bad that such structures, such magnificent structures, which from the outside look nice, only the outside surface, inside you go, it's all quite in poor shape. So one aspect will be to make them structurally safer in the best way that does not diminish the heritage value of the buildings. The other will be to convert their use into museums. World over, this is a very common thing. Even in India, many old buildings have been done. We have a lot of expertise in the country of how to convert old buildings into new uses. Over the last 2 decades or 3 decades, there are many experts who have worked on this, who will all be a part of this transformation. And that's what we are aiming to do. So to bring these buildings back to their older glory, and to make them structurally safer, and to use them in a way that makes sense for the public today.
Yes, sir. There are few other concerns about the seismic resistance of the proposal and the pedestrianization, cycle tracks. So very briefly, if you can add.
Yeah, well, all these buildings, we are all architects. We know we have to follow the standards and the rules that have been set up. For buildings such as this, the highest standards are applied. Okay, there's just simply no question about it. If Delhi is zone 4, they'll say, no, design it to be zone 5. Make it 1 grade higher. So everything is being done in a way that is befitting the most important offices of the government of India. So that is one thing. As you can see, the pedestrian facilities are being improved in the Central Vista area. There are many places, the pathways are broken, where there are no places to walk, and they will be improved. And the cycling paths, etc., all of this will become a lot more possible once the area is done. So really this transformation is about going inside compounds and redoing the buildings, taking all the public spaces and improving all the public spaces. And that's what I've shown you in the presentation. I hope to have made it clear, but I could have perhaps done better.
Uh, I think we can stop here. The questions are still coming in, and there are lot many questions. But I think this is the time to stop. The last one question I will like to pose or ask you to give your own comment about the imperial identity and the identity of democratic India.
One of the beautiful aspects of this, this North Block, South Block, Rashtrapati Bhavan, Parliament House were all designed to be symbols of the Raj. At that time also there was a great debate. What should the style of the architecture be? And there were many at that time who believed that it should be completely European architecture. Others who believed it should be completely Indian. And finally, what came out was a brilliant synthesis by Lutyens, which drew from the two traditions and created a sort of a local classic language. And it's the power of that architecture and the beauty of India, I would say, our cultural beauty in a sense, that though this was meant to represent the Raj, it was totally embraced and taken over by Indians as their own. Today, we love those buildings as if they are our own. Okay? And in the buildings that we do, for example, the parliament or the office buildings, we feel that they have to work along, the architectural language has to work along with the language of the old heritage buildings. I have done work on other sites. I've worked in other places where you have a strong modern context. Okay, for example, the Indian Institute of Management in Ahmedabad, which was a celebrated modern campus. And when you build next to it, then you want to have some continuity in the two. And so we created a building with a language that was high modern in some ways. But here we want to take a language that completely creates a unified whole with the older buildings. That doesn't mean it's a complete copy of that, but at the same time, it uses the elements from the old architecture. So what we are doing in some sense is paying tribute and respect to the architecture of the original architecture of the Central Vista and creating something that sits easily next to it and that blends with the place rather than stands apart. The office buildings are not meant to be attracting huge amount of attention. They are the backdrop. The real magnificent buildings are already there. You don't need to create a big drama in these. The Parliament building is perhaps a jewel and that needs to be good on one side, but it's to the side. So our job here is really to be a little muted rather than to be bombastic in this. And in everything that we have done, I believe, we have tried to stay in the background, to respect the structure, the street structure, respect the original symmetry, to respect the original arrangement of buildings, to sort of respect the landscape of the area, and to see how we can do things that are not coming out as the most important. And I think this is an attitude. We have to build on what exists without trying to overshadow it. And that was from day one our strategy and continues to be like that. The outside elevations will be stone of similar sort so that the whole ensemble can work as one. And that's what we are doing. And that's what informs every decision. Of course, there's vast numbers of people working with me. I get to stand here and talk to you about this. And I'd like to once again, what I've showed you is we're proud of the work that we have done, But it's the work of a very huge team of consultants across the country and people in the office, large numbers of people coming together. I get to stand here and talk to all of you about it. So I want to just once again, before we end, mention that this is the work of a vast number of people. I take responsibility for it as the architect and as the leader of that team, but it's the hard work of lots of very young, sometimes very experienced architects, engineers, designers of various sorts working on the project. So I'd just like to pay tribute to my colleagues before you end this session.
The identity of Central Vista though was imperial, but I think now it is almost our, and it is Indian identity. So you are trying to just carry forward that instead of just creating a contrast or any new Indian identity, but that we have already accepted that as an identity because it's there for more than 90 years now.
Yes,
So,
you put it correctly.
yes.
Thank you.
Sir, we have architect Habib Khan sir with us, President Council of Architecture. So if he wants to share something, I will like to invite Habib sir.
Hi, thanks everyone for the wonderful presentation. And these kind of architectural debates, these kind of dialogues is very important in today's time, especially on public domain projects where you know what is happening, and this information is very vital for everyone to know. There have been, like Bimal just said, there's a huge team involved, but he takes the bouquets and he takes the brickbats as well. So he's been the target of appreciation as well as criticism. And we all know this project is being criticized by a section of architects and a lot of other people. But that's a matter of debate in another platform. This has to be an academic concern. And we will ask those tough and difficult questions to Bimal very soon. And I'm sure you will be able to address them as well. But today was an architectural discussion, what I gather from the proceeding, and it has been a very informative discussion. I'm sure a lot of doubts would have been cleared and a lot of clarity would have come in after the presentation. And I thank MASA for organizing this and inviting me here as well. And I'm sure that you all will keep doing such kind of projects where public participation is very crucial and important, so that our fraternity gets exposed to not only such kind of projects, but feels that we are participating in the process. There have been a lot of questions and chats that I've been reading on the platform, where a lot of architects are asking a question: can we not participate in the design process because it's a democratic institution? I don't know. I mean, that is left to be able to answer. But I mean, this is the essence of the chats and the questions that have been put up. But I'm sure we will meet again, and we'll meet on a equitable, paritable platform where we'll be able to ask difficult questions which we think the country is asking, and I'm sure they'll be addressed. Thank you, MASA, for doing this, and thank you for inviting me.
Now I invite Shubha Madam for concluding the session.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I, Ms. Shubhada Chapekar, on behalf of MASA, propose a vote of thanks. What an amazing presentation. I am sure all of you were mesmerized by Dr. Patel's work on transforming the Central Vista of New Delhi. I hope the students and young architects have benefited from this and learned a few things about the hard work and attention to detail that is required to conceive and design a project of such importance and scale. Thank you, Dr. Bimal Patel, for sharing and explaining this project to us. I thank Dr. Ujjwala Chakradev, President MASA, and Professor Habib Khan for hosting and organizing today's presentation. The role of the founding president, Professor Akhtar Chauhan, and Professor Vijay Soni is also appreciated. I also thank all the MASA Executive Committee members, Professor Purva Keskar, General Secretary, Professor Ritu Deshmukh, Vice President, Professor Chakor Mehta, Joint Secretary, Professor Sandeep Dige, Professor Farhad Kazi, and Professor Abhay Purohit. I thank all the faculty and SMNCA College for working to make this event possible. All the panelists and architect Falguni from HCP for contributing meaningfully to today. Lastly, all the participating students, architects, and faculty who have participated in such a large number to listen to the master architect, Dr. Bimal Patel. We all look forward to many such events from MASA in the near future. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks
sir.
a lot. Thanks.
Thank
Thanks
you
a
very
lot.
much. Thank you. Great honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.